One of the things that's being talked about, but I don't know how extensively it's going to be discussed, is the special teams unit for the Carolina Panthers. And really, we're talking punter and Johnny Hekker, long snapper and JJ Jensen, and kicker Eddy Piñeiro. All three of them are free agents. And if you're ranking most likely to return to least likely to return, I think JJ Jensen coming back on the minimum seems like the most realistic thing. Johnny Hekker probably next is, maybe he didn't have a great year. But again, if the Panthers are just looking for stability and not a lot of change, they may decide to, hey, let's just run it back with Hekker for one more year. Eddy Piñeiro seems to be the name that's coming up quite frequently, is like he's probably not coming back. And whether that's his decision, whether he thinks he can get more money, which he probably can, even though some fans don't want to hear that, it's TBD. You know, what's funny is we look out here, the reason I'm creating this video is primarily the discussion around Eddy Piñeiro. Everybody knows I'm a fan of him, but I will also acknowledge the shortcomings, the letdowns, the frustration. But I wonder, comparing him in Panthers history, if it's warranted or not. Of course, he has the best field goal percentage in Panthers history, although much fewer snaps. We're going to look at the stats in a minute, much fewer kicks. But where do we, when we talk about replacing Eddy Piñeiro, it's like, who are you bringing in? That's my number one question every time people have bashed Eddy Piñeiro. And I'm fine with you having your opinion on him. But when you talk about replacing Eddy, who are you bringing in? Because Harrison Mevis did not work out. And you can talk about, well, he had a really good camp. He had some misses. He did not get picked up by anyone else. You look at the cycle of NFL kickers, Panthers fans latch on to things that just don't make sense. And I've been following this for 2 years, so I've seen it firsthand. Everyone got so excited about Mevis. They got so pissed when he was cut. That's fine. But folks, let's look around. Did he get picked up anywhere else? No, he's been sitting at home. That's not to say he's not a good kicker, but I think there's a reason he didn't make the roster. So looking at potential free agents, Nick Folk, he's a 17-year veteran. Maybe he's available. I don't know. You probably have to pay a pretty good penny to bring him in. He last played on a $3.7 million contract. Matt Prater out of the Arizona Cardinals, he's probably your number 2. He was on a 2-year, $7.5 million contract. Joey Sly, talk about names circling around and players leaving in Carolina. He's available. His field goal percentage isn't great, so I don't really think he's worth it. I mean, I'd take Eddy Piñeiro over Joey Sly every day of the week. I'd also take Eddy Piñeiro over Zane Gonzalez, who's a former Panther. So you start stacking these people up, and it's like, well, do you want to pay good money, $3 or $4 million for a kicker? That's the number one question. I mean, outside of that, the only other free agents you have Michael Badgley out of Detroit, Brandon McManus out of Green Bay, and Riley Patterson out of Cleveland. Eddy Piñeiro is probably in the conversation for one of the best free agent kickers out there. Panthers fans don't want to hear that, and I'm not saying, again, you have to agree. But we do have to acknowledge it because, okay, are we going to draft? Are we going to spend a 6th or 7th round pick? That's fine. Are you going to bring in a kicker off the streets, an undrafted free agent? That's always a possibility. Are you going to have tryouts? I know Eddy had some ups and downs as far as misses. He also had ups and downs as far as injuries and staying healthy. But we got to talk about what is actually leaving the building once he's gone. So to do that, let us jump in here and discuss Eddy Piñeiro as a Carolina Panther. I talked about the field goal percentage. Now, I said he was number 1. He's number 1, relatively speaking, in kickers with that have played a decent amount of football. Zane Gonzalez, Joe Nedney, Todd Sauerbrunn, Todd Sauerbrunn, Ryan Santos, and Chandler. Like, those guys barely played. Now, I will say Todd Sauerbrunn has actually played it a little bit more. He was the punter. Now, as we dive into this, I know I talked about Eddy Piñeiro as we dive into this, I know I talked about Eddy Piñeiro having the best field goal percentage in Panthers history. It's relative to the number of attempts, like with at least 90 attempts, because you look at Zane Gonzalez, Neddy, some of these other guys, like they haven't attempted it. Your three kickers in Panthers history, and you maybe throw Joey Sly in here, but it's Eddy Piñeiro, Graham Gano, and John Casey. I mean, as far as percentages, Eddy Piñeiro better than those guys, 88.9% field goal percentage. You have to remember the extra point. It's only 92%, but it's moved back for Eddy compared to Gano and Casey. Graham Gano, 85%. And then John Casey, who's just a Panthers legend, 82.8% career field goal, but he attempted 424 field goals compared to 90 for Eddy Piñeiro. So that's where he stacks up. And historically speaking, you look at the percentages, a lot of people bash Eddy for his range or lack thereof. Eddy is 8 for 11 on field goals of 50-plus yards. What is that, around 79, 80%? The percentages are much worse for Gano and Casey. Casey was 50%, Gano below that as well. Even into the shorter range, I know Eddy's been kind of iffy in the 40 to 49. But all of this to say that Eddy Piñeiro is likely one of the top 3 kickers in Panthers history. I mean, is one of them. There's no question. He's one of the top 3 kickers in Panthers history. I understand the disdain that, you get mad. He cost us this game. He cost us this game. I think it's just recency and relevancy of like what people remember, which I don't blame them. It's what you know. It's what you've seen. It's here and it's in front of us. But who are we bringing in? Who is going to be better? And again, I'm not saying this in a way to like say that we shouldn't explore, but I just say be careful what you wish for. That's the only thing that I'll say on this. Just be careful what you wish for, because if this thing does not pan out, man, it's going to be tough. So anyways, would love to know your thoughts on the specialist group, on Eddy Piñeiro, Hecker, JJ Jansen. Car Talk is the man. But anyways, folks, this is Carolina Dad. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Y'all have a good one.